Alright, so I've rendered out my elements, so my foreground and my midground. So now I'm back inside of Nuke, and we're gonna see how this looks. So I'm gonna first simply import my beauty passes before rebuilding my render, just to see how they look. So I plug in my foreground element in the merge node that is in the front, and my midground in the merge node that is in the back. I'm deactivating my background elements or the sky and basic projections for now, just to see how it looks. And I think it is pretty good for now. The midground seems to be quite bright. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm sure there's gonna be an explanation for that. I'm gonna check that out later. Anyway, the foreground looks really good, I think. So now what I'm gonna do is to rebuild my render. So I'm gonna import all my AOVs. So you can create read nodes and import them, or you can also import them all at once by control clicking. So you can select actually all your AOVs and make sure once again that you have the sequence option that is ticked, so you can import those as sequences. So as I said, you can import all your AOVs also at the same time, like I'm gonna do here. Just gonna make sure that I select the right version. So in my case, it's the version 002. And here I have all my render passes. And I'm gonna use merge nodes to rebuild my renders using those passes. First, I'm just isolating my utility passes that I will not need to rebuild my render. And I'm putting on the left so my render elements that are going to help me rebuild my render. So it's the GI, the reflection pass, the specular lighting, the refraction pass, diffuse lighting obviously. And I'm going to use a merge node that is going to be put in over mode or plus. I think technically it's supposed to be plus, but it actually doesn't make any difference in this case, but I'm still going to put it in plus. It doesn't matter the order that you put those merge nodes, those passes, as long as they're all added on top of each other. So as you can see, I'm adding like the GI, diffuse lighting, reflection, refraction, and specular lighting. I'm not going to use actually the SSS in this case because that was only for the water, but we don't have any water here for the foreground. So now to use the fog AOVs for our volumetrics, you can take a look on the Redshift site in the documentation. They actually explain quite well how you're supposed to comp those three different passes. First, you're going to multiply what we have now by the volume tint pass. So I'm going to use another merge node, except this time it's not going to be put in over or plus, but in multiply. There you go. And then, if you take a look once again at the Redshift website, you're going to add the volume lighting and the volume fog emission. So I'll put here my volume lighting, volume fog emission, and I'm going to use once again merge nodes, this time once again back into plus mode. And now I should have exactly what I have in my beauty pass. Except that now I have all those different passes, meaning that I can tweak them separately. So that is a really powerful tool. I'm going to put everything in the backdrop node so it's much clearer. And I'm going to do the same now for our midground elements. So once again, I'm importing all my AOVs, putting on the side the utility AOV, so puzzle mat, motion vectors, wall position. Those are the AOVs that we will use just to do some tweaks. But now I just want to rebuild my render. So once again, I put on the side diffuse lighting, GI, reflection, specular lighting, refraction, and also in this case, some subsurface scattering. I think it's extremely minimal. I think we almost don't see it, but I still wanted to render out just in case. Also putting my fog elements once again. And I'm going to use those merge nodes in plus mode. Might be a bit tedious to rebuild the renders, but you'll be happy once you've done it. Because what you will see is that you're going to be able to decide, for example, hey, I want to have more specularity on those trees. Well, you'll be able to crank up the spec lighting of just the trees using the puzzle mat that we have for the trees. Okay, so here is our midground element that is rendered out. For example, one thing that I noticed is that a reflection in the water of the sun is probably a bit too harsh, but that is something we'll be able to control using those AOVs. Once again, putting everything in the backdrop, naming it properly. That's a good habit to take early on, naming everything properly and keeping the Nuke script organized, because those things can get quite crazy fast. Okay, so I'm gonna replace now the beauty pass by or rebuild renders, and you can see there is some ugly transparency going on, and that is perfectly normal. What you need to do is to use a copy node that you're gonna put at the end of your tree, and then you're gonna link it to your beauty pass, and that is gonna then use the alpha of the beauty pass. Gonna do the same for the midground. Cool. So I think this looks quite good for now. Just gonna see if there are no frames that are faulty or that fail. That might happen. By the way, you may need to re-render out a few frames. You never know, sometimes a few frames can fail. And you can see here, I can decide if I want to have more or less of this fog. So I can control this very easily using, for example, here a gray node, playing with the offset and multiply settings. You can do pretty much whatever you want. I mean, I think the possibilities are quite limitless. Or if I want to increase the refraction, so that is the light here in this case that is visible behind the windows. So that's how you rebuild your renders using the AOVs. We'll get into that much deeper later on. So now let's focus on creating our background matte painting